I'm passing through Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. I'm not sure I'm in a bad dream here or got lost in the jungle somewhere. Go ahead. This is about 6 miles from where I grew up. Here overlooking the Columbia River, a place called Cape Horn. Pretty spectacular. If you wonder where the power that goes to Portland and elsewhere comes from, that's a good question. Well, it doesn't come from big fir trees or seagulls. In this case, it comes from Bonneville Dam and other dams that are along the Columbia River. Look at that. That is a big, big dam. A lot of water coming through. Bonneville Dam is the last dam downstream on the Columbia River. Here is the bridge of the gods. Cascade Locks. And this goes over the Columbia, where there used to be some rapids, and they built some locks around it. And it's pretty spectacular. You look out there. And if you open the door, you can see out here, and you can look straight down too. Wow. And here we are, Cascade Locks. And there's the Bridge of the Gods over the Columbia River. And there's the Columbia with some mountains of the Cascade Mountains on the other side. Stevenson, Washington, just on the other side. I grew up about 10 miles from there on the Washington side. This is the Interstate 84, just east of Portland. And goes right past beautiful Multnomah Falls. 600 feet high. Look at the size of that thing. Not much water this time of year. Here's the Columbia River Gorge, Hamilton Mountain, where I used to go hiking. And here's Columbia River. There's Bonneville Dam. Here's part of it. A lot of water coming through. Bonneville Dam fish ladder. Wow. They count all the different salmon, and in this room there goes a salmon right there. A couple of them coming up. And these are a whole bunch of lampreys that are stuck to the wall. I can't see, there's some salmon coming by there. There's some shad. There's some steelhead coming up. And here's the fish ladder. So the viewing room is right over there underwater. It goes on down. The salmon and others have to make their way up. All right, here we are above Washougal, Washington, foothills of the Cascade Mountains, Canady Falls Ranch. This is where I grew up. Beautiful place. Now my brother owns it and he uses it as a, well, bed and breakfast, but without the breakfast. There's the house there. Yep, quite the place. And it sits right on the river there. Maybe we'll look at that real quick. This is where I grew up, Canady Falls Ranch. It's in North Fork, the Washougal River, and on up there, that's Canady Falls. Yeah, if you zero in on it, the river's real low, but boy, when the water's high in the winter, the water just rages across that. When I was growing up here, steelhead, mainly steelhead, not salmon. Steelhead are seagoing. They're like salmon. When they're small, they go to the ocean, but they're rainbow trout. Steelhead are rainbow trout. Anyway, they go to the ocean a couple years, come back, and they average about 6, 7, 8 pounds. And we just watch them all day long, jumping over that falls. And here's the North Fork, or sometimes called the West Fork of the Washougal River. And when I was a boy and teenager, out of that hole right there, I caught lots and lots of steelhead. And if you go on up the river, there's a waterfalls up there. And I grew up here with Mark, my brother, and he's now the owner of Canady Falls Ranch. Say hi, Mark.
How's it going?
He's a man of few words.
Well, whoever's watching this, forgive me. This dog gets wonked out if he had to sit in here, so I've got to walk around town. And a lot of people think something's wrong with us, but anyhow, this is where she's happy, and I'm willing to accommodate. What's your question? What's your first question?
Oh, let's see. This was sort of off the cuff here. So tell us how many acres you have here.
200 acres.
All right.
And there's about 5 acres around the house that's maintained. The rest is timber. But there's 3/4 of a mile of the Washougal River coming through the property.
Yeah. We'll talk just a little bit about what Mark is doing here with the ranch at present. But Mark, what was it like growing up here?
Well, it was just out in the woods. All the hot chicks were downtown, so I was having a hard time being here. But apparently you were just, every day from school you'd go out there and just go crazy to go fishing. I didn't understand that. Fish were plentiful at the supermarket. Mom would bring them home. So it didn't make any sense to me. It never did. But anyhow, to each his own, and you were lucky to grow up here while I was imprisoned. But anyhow, we're doing fine.
Amen. When you were growing up, you were kind of mainly heavily into sports, and then tell us a little bit about the cedar picnic table business.
Well, just our father was an entrepreneur, and so there was a situation where he was aware of a trailer park that needed about 100 picnic tables. So he said, was I willing to go into mass production? So he showed me how to go borrow some money. We bought a saw, big radial arm saw and other tools, and couple orders of massive trucks of lumber, and made jigs for all the parts and put it together and delivered them. And got paid the loan out, put some money in my pocket, and then other people started ordering them. So it was quite the lesson for a 16-year-old guy.
I remember one fellow who worked for you sawing up the wood on the radial saw with massive hay fever, massive dust, getting paid substandard wages.
It's hard to get good labor.
But when I tried to unionize, Dad shut it off real quick.
Oh, yeah, that was you. That's right. I mean, it might have been 85 degrees. You were covered in caking sawdust.
Yeah.
And you just did nothing but complain. But we got through it. And then Mom came out when you fell apart. And she got on the saw line with all the sawdust flying at her.
Mark was, he's a year older than I am, and he was always
more physical.
Why?
And
Why?
that's why my book, our story is a little bit related to the title of my book, Confessions of a Cutthroat Trout. Mark was more of a rainbow, I was more of a cutthroat. Okay, so now you have a business, you've been involved with Clark County politics in the past.
Well, we better cut this short because this is at the point where people stop watching. So, so
Yeah.
wind it down with any grand final statement.
Okay, what if you could, for anybody coming into business, what are some values that it takes to make it work?
Well, that's a
One or two.
longer, but it's basically have some sense of a strategic plan. Not everything is follow your passion, because that usually ends up in a ditch somewhere wondering what happened to you. Just get a decent plan and then you keep after it. And at times when it seems like it's hopeless, it may be, but you learn from that and you keep pushing forward a little bit longer. It's basically that. And by the way, this property here, we don't live here, but we have it for a vacation, a higher end vacation rental. So if anybody wants to see more of the property, the website is booktheranch.com. That's a series of letters, booktheranch.com, and go from there. I think Lilo's had enough of this.
All right. Then we'll bring it to an end. Thank you, Mark.
Take care.
Grade school friend, Andy Lexo, who's mountaineer and timberman, tree topper. And here we are in the way upper Washougal. Sun shining through the trees. Beautiful, beautiful river. There's a lot of beautiful waterfalls up there. And the mountains behind. Oh, we're going to take a swim here.
Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Galloping Gertie. Across the Tacoma Narrows. The wind knocked this bridge down one time, a long time ago. Long time ago. There's Tacoma Narrows. There's Tacoma Narrows. And we're going to see my sister. Spend a day or two with her before heading back to Montreal. Hey. Wunderbar, magnifique.
Here we are, Catherine's and Eric's lovely place, Schwartz, on Puget Sound, here near Paulsbo. Their lovely house up here. And we saw an albino seal a little while ago. And here we are with dear old friends Jim and Sue Hardy making s'mores with Abner. Hey, Abner. Hey. Where's Abner?
It's okay, bud.
And Rico.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, I'm going to be 80.
Whoa! This is dinner, supper, up in Paulsbo, Washington, right on the water. Here's fresh salmon.
If you were here in October, we would have caught that ourselves.
That's right. And here's fresh
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
And there's some rice in there. That's
And
not very
could you
exciting.
tip that, please? Tip it. And here's the rice that will go with it. And here is Mr. Schwartz, Eric Schwartz, whose wife made this delicious, wholesome meal.
Wow.
Eric, my brother-in-law, and presenting the chef who made this lovely meal, my sister Catherine. Yay. All right, Catherine. And here visiting my good friend, high school classmate Kevin Hall. pastors a church up here in Fort Ludlow, Washington. Hey everybody. All right. Glad you're hanging in there with the H.I.M mission. And no, we're not in Canada right at this moment. I flew back to from Montreal to Portland for my 50th high school reunion, and it was a blessing. I'll probably speak more about that later in another video, but it was really a blessing. And so right now I came up to see my sister, then I drove up, who lives across from Seattle, and then earlier today I drove up to Port Ludlow on the edge of Puget Sound to visit my old friend Kevin Hall, who we were in high school together. Kevin was the class president then, and Kevin has an interesting story. He had a bit of a rough background right when he was out of high school there, although he was very accomplished in high school with the student government and also with sports. But he eventually came to Christ, coming to Christ at the age of 21. And his road has been very interesting after that, because he's first of all, he's worked for many years with juvenile offenders to try to restore them and to get them back on the right road. So he was working for the state for many years. And Kevin also eventually went to seminary, and where he got master's degrees, and also eventually a doctorate of ministry from Gordon Conwell. And he has pastored churches on both the east side and the west side of the mountains. And also he was a professor of Bible at Northwest College, an Assembly of God's college nearby. And now he pastors a church. The name of the church is?
Fort Ludlow Community Church.
Yeah, Fort Ludlow Community Church, a Assembly of God church here in Port Ludlow. And he's been doing that here for about 4 years. And they've been having a great time, he and his wife and family. So, but when he got his was working on his doctorate, he did a dissertation on the subject of hospitality in ministry and its key role. So I'm going to switch the camera around and introduce you to Kevin Hall, and he's just going to give you a little sketch for about 10 or 15 minutes about maybe why he chose that subject, how it pertains to the church, and the value in it, and what we might do in the church to better our serve, so to speak, in order to be hospitable, just like it says in the New Testament that we should show hospitality to strangers, and what forms that might take. So I'm going to switch the camera around here to Kevin, and I'd like to introduce you, Kevin Hall, Dr. Kevin Hall. And,
Kevin's good. Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin.
Good to see you.
All right. And so anyway, yeah, how did you come up on that subject?
Well, part of it was, the early part was experiential. My wife and I would visit different churches occasionally, and there was two particular events that took place that really caught my attention. And the first one was, we visited a church while on vacation, and we got there a little bit late. Our girls were small, took us a while to get them ready, but we got to the church probably 5 minutes after the service started. And there's cars in the parking lot, but it looked like the lights were off. We went into the foyer. There was no one in the foyer. We had to listen to the music, and for the music, to find out where people were at. We kind of made our way through this empty building, dark building, to come upon a sanctuary that had probably about 40 or 50 people in it. And people were okay. We stood up, the greeting time that people do sometimes in churches, and a person felt obligated to come over and shake our hand, and then After the service was over, though, we were out in the foyer kind of milling about, and no one was really saying anything. But the pastor came up to me, big smile, shook my hand. He says, "Hi, I'm so-and-so," and I shook his hand. And he said, "So what brings you to these parts?" And I explained that we're on vacation and that I was a fellow minister. And when he said that, he let go of my hand, the smile left his face, and he walked away. Now, I'm not making that up. I wish I was, but that happened in two different churches that we visited, not on that trip, but over the years. And I reflected on that. I go, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I did know I should pray for that church. Because if they're doing that to their guests, then what does it look like, in the DNA of the church? So that was always kind of in my memory. And then it dawned on me, my wife and I, that when they found out that I was a pastor, that I was no longer a possible attender. I was no longer a possible tither, perhaps. And I don't think I'm reading too much into it. But we were being treated as objects to be won, not people to be loved.
Objects?
To be won, and not people to be loved. And so when they discovered that, they knew that we weren't going to be a part of their future, or that I was a pastor, whatever, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I don't want to read too much into it, but that put us on the road, put me on a journey about the hospitality of God and the hospitality within God's churches.
Yeah.
And what is the relationship between the two of them? How does it look like in real time? What are things that we call hospitality that are good? And there are good things that we do. And what are things that maybe we think is good, but it's really not?
Is there any biblical basis for treating people in the church as objects?
Is there a biblical basis to treat people in the church as objects?
Am I?
I think there's anti examples of that everywhere.
Yeah.
On the contrary, it's interesting in the Old Testament, for example. The number one command in the Old Testament is to love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. I mean, that's the number one command, most repeated. The second most repeated command is to love the stranger. And so that catches people off guard. That is repeated more often than many of other things that we might think would supersede.
Yeah, that reminds me in the law, and specifics don't come to mind, but time and again in the law, they were commanded to make room and treat the strangers compassionately, to leave room in their fields for the gleaners, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I forgot the author's name, but when I wrote my doctorate, I had in my introduction this sentence. It was just the only thing on the page was one sentence, and it was a quote from this now forgotten author off the top of my head. But it was this: our perception enables our reception. In other words, how we see people determines how we receive them. Now, for example, in a lot of churches I've been in, and pastored even, people will say we're a friendly church. Oh, we're a friendly church. We're a friendly church. That seems to be a favorite saying. We are a friendly church. But many times, they may not be as friendly as they think they are. What they're saying is that when I go to church, I see my friends, and we're friendly. But the person who should be answering the question, are you a friendly church, is not the people that you know, it's the people that you don't know. It's the people who are guests. Are we friendly to them? Do we make room for them? Do we create space for them? And when you think about, the paradigm of hospitality is Genesis 18 with Abraham and Sarah and the three angelic visitors come, and there's this great host. The Lord is present in that setting, and by making room for the three guests, they find themselves on holy ground. Now you fast forward to the New Testament, and so Jesus is the paradigm by which we live our lives. The least of these, the least of these. Having hospitality is not like having. I went to one church one time, and I asked about their hospitality. We'd been going there for 6 months, and no one really talked to us much. And so I asked about the level of hospitality to one of their deacons, I think he was. And so he pointed us to the back of the sanctuary to a room with no windows in it. And over the door it said hospitality room.
Wow.
And so I thought that was interesting, that if you wanted hospitality, you go back into that room over there. And so we went back into that room, and it was a windowless room about the size of a walk-in closet where they were trying to sell you outdated books.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't leave an impression that I was a person to be loved,
Yeah.
but rather an object to be won. So
Let me give you a little
Yeah.
confession. I find for my own soul, I'm really at risk in this area. On a Sunday morning towards the end of the service, when I'm hungry,
yeah.
and I look, the service is over, and I know there's some visitors there, but my flesh only just wants to go right to the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I even sometimes I will look at the visitors as a bit of a in between me and the hamburger.
Yeah.
Now that's pathetic, but yeah, that happens to me. But in your dissertation, did you focus in on some ways or some, I don't know, measures the church can improve their serve in this area?
Yeah, I did. And I think what's served us well is actually educating people biblically on the biblical version of hospitality, what it is and what it isn't. I think that's incredibly important, and that it's not the pastor's job to be hospitable, but it's every Christian's job, because as I said to you, Eric, before, that biblically we are all hosts of the kingdom of God by virtue of being spirit fed, spirit-filled Christians. We have all entered the kingdom. Therefore, wherever we are, whether we are in the waiting line of a supermarket or at our jobs or whatever, we're hosts of the kingdom. Do we make room for the stranger there?
Yeah.
Do we engage them there? So
I guess another word for that is we're ambassadors, but hosts has even a more personal, it gives us a more, I mean, we have to, in one form or another, wash people's feet.
Yeah.
But how do we, in the church, especially with visitors, what forms can that take?
Well, I'm not recommending name tags. I often hear that. Let's just put name tags on. But I am recommending an orientation difference in our thinking. We used to have this saying when I worked for the state with juvenile offenders that we need to learn to read the room, being aware of the room, who's in the room, have our radar on, and having that orientation is helpful. And so recognizing, that hospitality is not a one and done thing. It's walking with people through life. It's valuing them enough. It's being curious enough about them to learn their name, to invite them out. If we're going to go get a burger, invite them to come with us. That's hospitality. It's where it takes it beyond, the hour and a half of a Sunday morning, and to make room for them. So,
What is there a connection or a point of touching between this concept of host and discipleship.
Yeah, I don't think you can have one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's an excellent question, Eric. I actually was talking to a Chi Alpha leader, and that's a campus ministry. They're in different university campuses all throughout North America.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asking about the hospitality, and we were talking about this. And he said afterwards that, and I didn't expect this, but he said, you've given us new language to use in reaching these other students, because they've used the words of evangelism and other things, but now helping these students reach other students by helping them see themselves as hosts and guests rather than saved and unsaved was very helpful on a college campus where language is, contrived. When you talked about saved and unsaved on a university campus, that could be a closed door as soon as the words are saved. But guest and host opened up a whole panorama. It was more welcoming. So I wasn't expecting that. But as far as like real practical things, I would really encourage every church to do a biblical study on the hospitality of God. There are a lot of excellent books out there. I highly recommend Christine Pohl's book, Making Room. It has a very solid, very readable explanation of biblical hospitality. And there's others as well, but that's my favorite. And I think that understanding, for people, just knowing this. I preached a sermon in every church I've ever gone to more than once. Depending on how long I am, how long we've been there, but I always do like a 11 to 12 week sermon series on the hospitality of God and what that means, and that's helpful because they're terms that people don't normally think about. They think of hospitality as offering them coffee and cookies after church. And these are good things, but that's not nearly enough. It's more of who we are than what we do. So.
Okay. Is your dissertation available online?
I've been told it is. It had to be. That's why I worked so hard on it. And there are so many rewrites and editing it to it. It can be found on the Gordon Conwell database.
Okay.
It's called The Hidden Conversion, Biblical Hospitality as a Framework for Christian Discipleship. That's the name of it.
The main title again is
The Hidden Conversion.
The Hidden Conversion.
The Hidden Conversion.
At Gordon Conwell.
And should I explain that title?
Sure.
So The Hidden Conversion came from a conversation I had with a biblical Old Testament scholar, Bob Stallman, and I were having lunch, and I asked him we were talking about hospitality. I wanted to pick his brain because I was going to write my doctorate, and we were talking about the wedding of Canaan in Gospel of John. And he said, this is what Bob said to me. He said, most of the time people see the first conversion, but they don't see the second one. And I said, what are you talking about? And the first conversion was the water to wine. What are you talking about? What's the second one? And he goes, that's when Jesus goes from being a guest at the wedding to being the host. And I go, and that's when everything opened up for me. And that I called it the hidden conversion because we too, when we come to faith, go from being a guest to a host. We have dual roles, right? Just like Jesus had dual roles. He was a guest at times. He was a host at times, and so on. But you might remember after the resurrection, he's walking with these two guys on the road to Emmaus, right? And he's just listening to them, being with them. They have this angst about what all has taken place, and he starts talking with them and dialoguing with them, the risen Christ. And then they go, and then they they beg him to come in to be their guest with them, right? And he comes in and he's with them. And while he's with them, it's a beautiful story. He takes the bread and he blesses it. And they recognize who it is. And then he's gone. Jesus, they recognize Jesus when when he becomes the host.
Mm-hmm.
The conversion has taken place. He came in as a guest and has become the host of the household. And then now they have realized that they are actually guests in the kingdom. And now they can go out and be hosts. And they do. They go out telling people and making room and doing all these things with the disciples. And it's a very powerful imagery.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. All because of the word of Jesus, one clarifying the word on the road to Emmaus, and then his hospitality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, full confession, hospitality is hard work.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, if I may, last thing I'll say is that you're going to be tempted, if anybody wants to go down the road, you're going to be tempted to use hospitality as a tool of evangelism. Like, if we just do this well, the church will grow. And as soon as you do that, you lose it. Because if your motive is to grow, you can't help but treat people as objects, even in your attempt to be hospitable to them. We have to treat people as made in the image of God, valued by God, loved by God, and extend the same grace and mercy and room to them as God has done to us. And so, but if you do that well, God's been faithful in our life to bear fruit and to see the Spirit move in people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect. It creates tension because the wider the welcome, the more the tension.
Yeah.
Music might change. Things might change. Kids might put their fingerprints on the windows. You know, it might look a little different. But as one of my friends always said, I love to smell a little bit of smoke and alcohol in the church service. And what he meant by that is he meant that we're making room for people. He's not endorsing that, but he's saying he knows that there's room for people for that. So there you go.
Be a host.
Be a host.
Yeah, amen. Thank you.
You've been a great guest, Eric.
Well, I excel at receiving. But thank you, Kevin, and be praying for Kevin's church up here at Port Ludlow Community Church, right?
Yeah.
And they're kind of 4 years into trying to doing their best to be hosts and to revitalize and to disciple people, and there's things quite a bit of fruit already. So praise the Lord for that. Thank you, brother.
See ya.
All right.